Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In Podcast. Back at the Apex this week, UFC Vegas 108. We got Taira coming off his first professional loss, taking on short notice replacement, Hunsun Park, undefeated, 10-0, big opportunity for him. And then co-main event, I don't know, man, not the biggest names, but should be an absolute banger. Chris Duncan taking on Mateus Rebeski at 155. Just 12 fights for us to get into. As always, going to recap last week and how we finished up. Great night from the podcast, man. Both sides, more than 100% ROI. I started off the night hitting a plus 250 in Martin Budai. Honestly, man, should have probably hit it a little bit harder. That was one of the easier clicks this year for me. Tabitha Ricci, honestly, I knew she had all the finishing upside, but I didn't really expect her to finish. So that was nice. Bryce, a little sketchy at first, but closing line value was on my side. Got him at Pick'ems and then cashed in the main event as well on Rainier de Ritter. Regardless of how you score the fight, I think plus money was the right way. And outside of the knockdown, I think Rainier hurt Rob on multiple occasions, and Rob's body language throughout the majority of that fight after those knees really didn't look too good. So I thought it was a good bet, man. 6.41 units. Happy to keep the streak rolling. And toss it over to you, man. What is your third week in a row profiting more than 5 units?
Yeah, man. So happy to keep it rolling. Went 3-2 on my picks. First loss was the Marc-Andre Barriault. Made it competitive in that second round, but it was 30-27 across the board. It kind of looked like a plus 480. It's all right. It was only a half unit. Then we went head-to-head, or only head-to-head of the night, is Said Nurmagomedov over Bryce Mitchell. Really close fight, I guess. In a toss-up fight, I want the plus money, but still didn't happen. Tabitha Ricci, plus 162, was happy to hit that. Didn't expect to finish by any means, but she got it done, didn't make us sweat like we thought we were going to have to. And then Billy Elikana at plus 255, possibly the worst fight of the year so far. I mean, it was a glorified sparring match for sure, but to have plus 255 on that style of fight, super happy I hit that. And then Guskov wins by TKO in round 1, plus 550. I think that was one of the better spots I've ever played, especially this year. I feel like that's his win percentage, like a good amount of the time, and I was getting plus 550 on it. Krylov threw a lot of naked leg kicks, and finally he timed that up. I was a little worried as it was getting low in the later parts of round 1. He wasn't throwing enough, but it seemed like it was there, and he did find the kill shot. Plus 5.42 units. And looking to keep the ball rolling into this week, where we start off in the featherweight division. Austin Bashi taking on John Yanis. I'm not a huge fan of Bashi. I kind of think he's one of these guys where if he doesn't get his wrestling going, he's kind of a bust. Coming into this week, I was fully prepared to fade him against Fire Marshall. I like Francis Marshall. I think he's kind of gotten a bad few matchups, but this one I thought was kind of a decent one for him. Unfortunately, that fight falls through. John Yanis gets picked up to fight him on short notice. Yanis currently riding a 3-fight win streak, the Fury FC featherweight champion, and he's just come off of a win against Nick Aguirre. And after watching a few of his fights, man, he's got really solid boxing skills and really good cardio. But I was a little disappointed in this counter wrestling ability, and I think that's going to be a huge problem here against Bashi, especially on short notice. Nick Aguirre in his Fury FC featherweight championship fight, he's a decent grappler in his own right, but he ended up having a lot of success in those early rounds, finishing on the back of Yanis in both of the first 2 rounds, and then started slowing down in the fourth, where Yanis was eventually able to pick back up. I fully expect Bashi to get to his positions, especially early, and either ride out top time or eventually find that finish. I'm just not comfortable laying the juice on the inside the distance because Yanis does do a decent job of defending chokes. So I'm pretty comfortable putting Bashi in parlays this week, but I don't think I'm going to be able to find him under minus 500. So this is a spot where I think I'm kind of comfortable passing. But if the line does dip under minus 500, I would certainly be willing to look at another person to parlay him with.
Yeah, man, I am fully on the Bashi side with you as well. I bet C-Rod like plus 240 something when he beat Bashi. Bashi's debut was fully on the Francis Marshall side as well. But I'm with you, man. I think this is a lot more generous of a fight. You saw the same things that I all saw on tape, not just the Aguirre fight, but dude's been submitted in his one, lone finish loss before. been lost decisions due to the grappling. Yeah, you touched on it, man. The dude's cardio is good, the boxing's good, but I do think ultimately, regardless of its short notice, I think stylistically, kind of a bad matchup for him. Still inexperienced and young himself. Bashi, I'm not as high on him as a lot of people are. I still think he's young, makes a ton of mistakes in the octagon, but feels like a pretty generous fight for him to get back on track. Pass for me, clear Bashi side though. Moving down to the women's strawweight, Piera Rodriguez taking on Ketlin Souza. On one hand, being a girls' fight, I guess you could see that there's value in the dog. She does hold big power on the feet and has finished fights. I mean, I think if Piera Rodriguez goes in here and is able to get her grappling going pretty early, I think she wears on Ketlin, zaps Ketlin's cardio. I like the cardio, the wrestling. Piera sits down on her shots, man. She hits hard too. And ultimately, from what I've seen on these girls right now, Piera looks to be the one who's clearly improving. And I like what I see from the wrestling. And I think that ultimately, her last couple fights replicate itself here. She gets a pretty dominant wrestling, grappling victory by decision. I like the Piera Rodriguez side.
Yeah, so I see the fight somewhat similarly. Where I'm looking to attack this is the under. I mean, I honestly expected it to see like plus 150. Fight doesn't go the distance, and it's sitting at plus 220 right now. I think both these girls are dangerous. If Rodriguez isn't able to get the wrestling going, Souza has that fight-ending potential on the feet. And then if Rodriguez is able to get the fight to the mat over and over again, we saw her with the Carnelossi, like that fight was getting finished if she doesn't headbutt her.
Right.
And I think that she brings enough power to finish a girl, especially a girl like Souza, who's kind of not great when she's on her back. So, I like the under in this fight at plus 220. I think it's not lined well. So that's the first spot of my card. Haven't played it yet, but I think after the podcast, I'll probably have at least a unit on it. But yeah, I'm picking Rodriguez. I do think that she ends up getting, more likely than not, she ends up getting on top. But I think she finds a finish. And if she doesn't, I think she's going to be in some trouble on the feet standing with somebody like Souza who really sits on her punches. So give me the under. Pierre Rodriguez is the side, though.
I like it.
You like that?
I like it. I have it written in my notes as well. I had the under 2.5, but full fight plus 220 doesn't go the distance.
Don't get greedy, right?
Yeah, we hit a women's under to start the card 2 weeks ago or something. So
yeah,
I
think this is a decent spot, man. Moving down to up to the flyweight division, Felipe Bunes taking on Rafael Esteban. I think Felipe, he throws really hard off the jump. He's kind of like an early finish or bust type of guy. But I do think that Esteban's just a little bit too good to get caught. He's trained BJJ his whole life. He's a legit black belt. He has really good hip tosses. And I don't think he's scared to go to the ground with him. He puts that relentless wrestling game plan together. And you know how I feel about fighters usually, or undefeated fighters, especially when they get into the UFC. Most of the time they're losing by decision the first time that they do get a loss on their record. And I just don't think that Felipe Bunes is going to be able to put together 15 minutes of, a 15-minute fight together without slowing down pretty badly. I do think that Esteban, if he can get that wrestling going early and neutralize the harder strikes of Felipe, he could find the finish, get a ground and pound finish like he did in, I forget which fight it was. I think maybe his Contender Series fight. His Contender Series fight, Joa Elias, that ground and pound win in round 2. I mean, Elias didn't have anything for him off the back, and as long as he can keep him there, he's pretty dominant on top looking for the finish. So I am considering the under for this fight, but ultimately I do think that this is Bomb's fight to lose, and I'm pretty comfortable that he's going to win this.
Yeah, man. Early before breaking the fight down and doing some tape on it, I was like, 2 jiu-jitsu players, line could be a little bit wide, but man, ultimately I think Esteban just too physical, man, too young. I think he sits down on his shots a lot more. I feel like if anybody has the better wrestling to end up on top and ride out minutes, it's the Esteban side. And like you said, Bunes is kind of like a real finish or bust guy, and I think Esteban's kind of too good to be caught. And I don't think either one of their cardio is really to ride home about, but I think Esteban's is a little bit better and can fall back on the offensive wrestling if he really needed to. So I'm on Esteban's side. Not crazy about the price. Easy pass for me this week. Haven't really tempted on the under. Don't really have the best read on how that one's going to go down. Uh, Talking about an under, though, one I'm contemplating next fight at middleweight, we got Rodolfo Vieira taking on Tresean Gore. I don't count out a world where Rodolfo Vieira wins a striking fight against Tresean Gore. Like, the Chris Curtis fight was semi-competitive on the feet. But I think ultimately Vieira's going to get this done. He's going to get it done by early submission. So before I'd ever lay minus 200 on the guy who's gassed before aging, pretty one-dimensional, I think an under 1.5 plus 115 incorporates a lot of Vieira's win condition here. On the Tresean Gore side, again, the reason I said that, I'm not really counting out a Rodolfo striking, decision win is because Gore's volume is extremely low. And for as guy as athletic as he is, he really doesn't carry the power that you would think that he has. Super inexperienced, man. I'm not really high on Tresean Gore ultimately, and I think Rodolfo could get him down and strangle him. If he doesn't, it's probably a lot closer of a fight. But my gut feeling, Rodolfo round 1 sub, kind of how I see it going down. It's like
so I would be really tempted.
Fight, like Petrosian for me has the much better footwork, better striking, and if you can get your hands on him and get in those positions, I kind of feel like you can on Tresean Gore too.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, I would be really tempted to play Tresean Gore if he didn't take that life-altering beating, no less than like 3 months ago against Marco Tulio. But, let's say he does come in here full health. I think that, if it stays on the feet, I think he's a little bit faster striker than Rodolfo Vieira. Vieira has developed a jab since coming into the UFC, but I think that Tresean Gore would be able to put together a better 15-minute stand-up fight. I do think that Vieira finds his spots early, but he's going to be shooting for those takedowns over and over again, and he does do a power double leg. It's not much finesse. It's more just, I'm stronger than you, and I'm going to get you to the mat. And Tresean Gore does have a really dirty guillotine. Now, I know it's kind of crazy to say that somebody's going to win via guillotine against a multiple-time BJJ champion in Vieira, but I think that it's there. So, yeah, I'm kind of looking at the under as well. Both of these guys have finishing potential, and if Vieira doesn't set up those shots in the pocket, I think that there's going to be opportunities for Gore to kind of land that check left hook, the guillotine, a couple other ways that I could see him winning this outside of him just getting completely dominated and choked out in the first round. All that to say, the under is the spot. Vieira is more than likely going to be the guy that wins this, but there's some opportunity in there for Gore as well.
Yeah.
Moving to the bantamweight division, Rinya Nakamura taking on Nathan Fletcher. I came into this one really wanting to bet Nathan Fletcher. Like, I thought Rinya Nakamura is just one of these guys who's a little overrated. And after tape study, I still kind of feel that way, like the Muin Gafurov fight was one where I don't know, but I think I might have played Muin Gafurov. Not really sure, but I knew that Rinya just isn't as good as his record may suggest. He's one of these guys who came up fighting road to UFC fighters, not the steepest level of competition. And then he fights somebody who has some technical MMA skills, and he kind of gets outclassed a little bit in Muin Gafurov. But what Nakamura does is able to fall back on is the wrestling, is the pure athleticism. And I think that that's probably going to be enough to beat somebody in Nathan Fletcher here, who also kind of relies on some wrestling, which, English wrestlers just not notoriously the best thing that you want to rely on. So, and then dropping the fight to Colin Loughran, which I know it was a close fight. Maybe he should have gotten the nod there. It's still, I don't think it's a fight that Nakamura would have been close with Colin Loughran at all. So yeah, I think he's safe here, but I am looking in the near future to fade Rinya Nakamura because I think he's a little overrated still, but he will be the pick for this Saturday.
Yeah, you and I both might have been on the Gafurov side that night. Gafurov was a guy with like upwards of 25 fights, had only been submitted like one time in his career. A guy who was extremely experienced, and now Rinya getting another guy, much more on his level of experience. Rinya is extremely explosive, double the athlete of Nathan Fletcher. I think he's a much better striker of Nathan Fletcher. I don't think Nathan Fletcher is all that good, really. Colin Lawford pretty much beat him by being more physical than him, landing the harder shots, being more physical in the grappling. And I think Rinya can absolutely replicate that, if not, replicate it even better. I think Rinya's got him covered in the grappling. I think Rinya's got him covered in the striking. And if he does slow down, I think he's got the wrestling to fall back on and wind up on top. I feel like he's just so much stronger, more physical in the areas that this fight's probably going to take place. So, kind of like your Bashi pick, I parlayed Rinya, man. I think he's a pretty clear spot to bounce back, get back on track here. Moving up to 185, man. Nick Klein taking on Andre Pulyaev. Nick Klein, you and I both bet against Mansour at like plus 800 last time out. Dude's a dog. Fight for your dollar. Going to come forward. He's extremely dangerous. I do feel like he's sort of, especially at the UFC level, going to be finish or bust probably early. I don't think he has a ton of process to his game, and if he's left on the feet with most guys, including Pulyaev, he's going to lose the fight, just being honest with you. But I do think there's worlds where he gets on top of Andre Pulyaev early in this fight and can submit him. But I also think that if that doesn't happen, Pulyaev is much better striker, man. Can really hurt Nick Klein, switches the levels with the strikes, works the body as well. And for a guy as tough as Nick Klein, Pulyaev, it's second nature for him to work the body. And that might be what you have to do to get Nick Klein out of there in some point. So I kind of looked at the under. I think even if the under doesn't hit, it's going to be an extremely violent fight. I do think Nick Klein has finish potential, man. And I sort of want to bet him, but I sort of want him to be a bigger dog than like plus, what is it? What's he sitting at
plus
right now?
130-ish.
Plus 130, man. Like, I think he's a
plus
dog.
125, 130.
Yeah, I think he's a dog, but I don't think he's that skilled. And so he's a fighter that I really want a bigger price tag on when I bet him, because I think Pulyaev is really the better fighter and probably going to get him out of there in round 2 or 3 with the striking. So I hate to pick against him because I really like the dude, but I'm going to go Pulyaev TKO in the later rounds.
Yeah, so, Klein isn't the most technical fighter on the roster by any means, but, like his blue-collar nickname suggests, he is really, really physical, man. He's strong. He throws really damaging strikes. And I think for the first round and a half, he's capable of beating anybody on the roster. Pulyaev, he is a southpaw stance, throws those really powerful left kicks to the legs and body. But when he's standing straight up, he leaves his chin in a really bad spot when he's striking. But at the same time, when he does kind of get into the flow of things, he has really good vision. He's able to throw those really long punches that kind of accentuates his long reach. And, I do like the under in this fight. I kind of like Klein finish only. It's still plus 130. You don't lose any value on Klein inside the distance or decision, no action. And I think almost all of his upside is inside the distance. Now, because you're not losing any money betting his finish only line, I think that's how I take it, because I do think that there's a world where he's able to tough out the later 2 rounds and Pulyaev win a pretty clean decision. And then you're off the hook, you just get a push bet. But as far as I'm concerned on the Klein side, that's his only way of winning. So Klein inside the distance, decision, no action, finish only, however you want to say it. That's going to be how I play this fight. I got Klein in the fantasy league. I do think he's a finish or bust fighter, so I really hope he goes out there and puts it all on the line. Klein will be the pick for me, even though I would have to agree Pulyaev is the better MMA fighter, especially over the course of 15 minutes. Moving down to the featherweight division, the first fight on the main card, Danny Silva taking on Kevin Vallejos. Vallejos just tweeted out a second ago that he's worried that Silva might not make weight, in which case he wouldn't be on the card anymore. But I imagine they're going to try and keep this fight together, as there is only 12 fights on the card. Vallejos is the pick for me. I think he's just all-around better fighter. Danny Silva is not somebody who I'm too high on. He's really tough, but I don't think that he's the best fighter, and I think it's Kevin Vallejos' time. He's 23 or 4 years old, so I think as he grows as a fighter in the UFC, He's going to be a force to be reckoned with, man. Like, I do think that he's going to be up there fighting the top 10 of the division in no time. And I think that this is just one of the stepping stones to get there. Give me Kevin Vallejos. I think he gets this done relatively easily.
Yeah, I don't think Danny Silva's a bad fighter, man. I think dude's got really good boxing, really good cardio, can mix in takedowns. My issue with him here is he doesn't hit very hard, man. It's just me being honest. I like Kevin thinks his shit doesn't stink right now, man. You know, like he's got almost a delusional level of confidence, and I don't think that Danny Silva has the power to keep Kevin off of him. I think Kevin's going to walk him down and land big shots, rip to the body. You know, just durable as shit. And I like Kevin Vallejos as a prospect, man. I think he's going to go extremely far. You know, everybody talks about his one loss being to Jean Silva in the Contender Series where he takes round one off the guy. I mean, the sky's the limit for Kevin Vallejos. And, yeah, I think Danny Silva is just another stepping stone to get there. And it might not be an early finish as tough as Silva is, but I think eventually the damage, the work to the body, Vallejos going to get him out of there. Moving up to the welterweight division, Neil Magny taking on Zaleski dos Santos. Old guys on the card here, man. You know, Zaleski probably has, I would say, more than majority of the finishing upside here, but that's pretty much the case in all Neil Magny fights. I feel like this is a 100% Neil Magny spot, man. I don't know how you don't bet Neil Magny here in a spot where this is the type of fights that he wins. You know, the ones where he loses is when the UFC is throwing him to Michael Morales, to Carlos Prates, even Ian Gary and even Mike Malott, like really, really high prospects, young guys. And now he's getting a guy who's older than him, coming off a very bad performance, getting knocked out. I like Neil Magny, man. If Zaleski doesn't come out here and just debilitate him with calf kicks and lets Neil Magny get his game going, I think Neil Magny is going to work him, put him in the clinch, put him up against the cage, land knees to the body. And after the first 7.5 minutes, I think this fight's clearly going to go Neil Magny's way if he's still there. So at plus 160, 165, I think is what I got it at earlier today, maybe plus 170. Yeah, clear buy low spot for me on Neil Magny. One of the easier bets I've made this year, man.
Yeah, I have to agree. When we're both feeling this confident, it almost seems like it's a trap line. But yeah, I have to agree. It seems like Zaleski's durability is going downhill, especially as he ages. And Neil Magny's just had some really tough matchups, man. This is finally a spot where I feel like his manager did his job correctly, right, and is giving him a winnable fight here. Zaleski's somebody who really slows down, and Neil Magny, I think if Zaleski gives him the clinch positions, Neil Magny's going to be throwing some pretty devastating knees up the middle. And unless Zaleski puts together a 15-minute leg kicking fest, I think Neil Magny has him covered pretty much everywhere. So yeah, give me Neil Magny plus 170. I think that's a great spot as well. So glad we're both on him, but like I said, it's a little, I don't know, not my favorite when we're both that confident on an underdog. Moving down to the bantamweight division, Carol Rosa taking on Nora Cornoli. In my head, I think Rosa is kind of looking to lay and pray here. She needs to control Cornoli, and honestly, just what I've seen from Rosa lately, I think she's 2-3 in her last 5. It's not something that I personally like. I think that she's kind of at a power disadvantage against Cornoli, who I think has a pretty good chance to land some of those bigger shots, especially when it's inside the clinch and Rosa is trying to close the distance. So it's, I'm between betting Cornoli and just laying off, but I do think that it's, the line should probably be a little bit closer, considering that Rosa needs a clean 15 minutes to make this happen, and she just hasn't looked like her best self as of late. So give me Cornoli or pass here, but likely a pass.
I'm super confident on the Carol Rosa side this week, man. I feel like you could line her minus 250 or so in this fight. I will agree. I think Nora Cornoli probably has the power advantage here, and that could be enough to swing the fight. Outside of that, though, man, we're looking at a girl in Cara Rosa who's 5 years younger and has as many UFC fights as Cornoli has fights. I actually think Cara Rosa is going to win the battle in the clinch. Is going to push her up against the cage and really wear on her, really drain her. Has all the takedown upside. I think round 3 goes to Cara Rosa 90% of the time in this fight. She's a girl that surpassed 100 significant strikes and has never had a 5-round fight, and has hit the significant strike mark of over 100 3, 4, 5 times, man. Like, it's super reliable volume, and I like that on a fight that's probably going to go the distance. Yeah, and all the grappling, the cardio, the experience, everything. I parlayed Carol Hosa with Rinya Nakamura minus 105 to win a unit and a half. Pretty confident on the Rosa side, man. Like I was telling you, if it wasn't a female women's MMA fight, I feel like I would be wanting to lay the bomb on somebody having what I feel like is this many advantages in a fight and this much experience edge, still being the younger fighter. So I like the Carol Rosa side a lot this week. Moving on up to 155, Esteban Ribovics versus Elves Brenner. One of my favorite fights this week, man. If you can't take Esteban Ribovics down, like, he's going to put you in an absolute dogfight, man. Dude is durable as it comes. His volume's there. He rips to the body. His boxing is good. And he's still extremely young, man. You're going to see this guy improve in every single fight. Elves Brenner, he is, I guess, at times a decent grappler, but a lot of times it's when guys have, worn down and gassed and blown their wad, and I don't think Ribovics is going to do that. And Brenner, I know he's known for kind of being tough, but the dude's getting hurt in every single fight pretty much. And I think if you're going to get hit with the power of Ribovics, I don't think he's going to be able to withstand it for the full 15 minutes. So I honestly think it could be maybe Brenner gets a takedown or two, but outside of that, I feel like it might be a little one-sided beatdown for as long as Brenner's body can hold up. So I like Ribovics round 2, round 3 TKO. I think it was only like plus 400, plus 800. Bookies know. So, yeah, Ribovics round 2, round 3 finish is how I see it going down.
Yeah, so I also agree. I think it's Ribovics' fight to lose. Brenner, notoriously a good nail, but I don't think Ribovics is somebody who's going to slow down like Kutat Taladze did. I think he's just going to continue to beat on him until he does finally fold. You can get the fight ends inside the distance at minus 130, and honestly, I think that's a pretty favorable line, man. Both of these guys have finishing upside. If Elves Brenner is able to take him down, well, all right, you've got it covered with the under, and then most likely it's going to stay on the feet, and Ribovics is just going to beat his head in. So, yeah, I like the under here. I like Ribovics here. But instead of laying minus 250, minus 280, whatever the line might be on Ribovics, I like the under in this spot. You'll probably get plus money for the under 2.5 if you can find it. But that's how I'm looking at it. But, like you said, I do kind of see a second round, third round finish, which is why I want to get that extra 2.5 minutes, and minus 130 is a pretty decent price tag to pay for it. See, moving up to the co-main event spot at 155 pounds, we have Chris Duncan taking on Mateusz Rąbecki. I've seen a lot of people on Chris Duncan as a dog this week, but I honestly, I can't agree. I like Mateusz Rąbecki to kind of bounce back here. I think he's a really, really tough dude. He pushes a really crazy pace. And Chris Duncan is somebody who gets hurt in just about every single one of his fights. He doesn't have the wrestling, the counter wrestling like CDF did. And I think I was on CDF. It was plus 380.
Yeah, you were.
And that was one of my better spots that I had in 2024. But Chris Duncan just doesn't emulate enough of the counter wrestling that CDF had to make me want to bet him here. I think Rąbecki is going to push a pace that Duncan can't keep up with and eventually break him. So give me Mateusz here. Not sure if I'm going to play him or how I'm going to play him, but I do think he gets it done.
Super confident on the Mateusz Rąbecki side as well, man. I don't really know what advantage Chris Duncan has here outside of just being the bigger guy. And being the bigger guy, man, Mateusz is built like a bowling ball, dude. And I still think he's the faster guy. I think he hits harder. I think he's got the better cardio. I think he's a better wrestler. Chris Duncan is just one of those kind of meme Hail Mary, come from behind, losing fights until he's not. And as long as Rebesky can stay safe from that, I think he could go out here and honestly knock out Chris Duncan. So I like Rebesky pretty confidently. I think he gets it done, man. I know these guys train together and stuff too at American Top Team. So to see guys train together and then to see Rebesky line 2-1, I don't know. Part of me feels like there's some type of information out there as to what's gone down in the training room or something to have Rebesky minus 200. And I agree he should be minus 200. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Main event, man, at 125, Tatsuro Taira is supposed to be taking on Amir Albazi. Amir Albazi not getting medically cleared. Hudson Park, I think he took the Steve Ursig fight next week on short notice and then popped out of that one to fight Tatsuro Taira or something. So Park's got a couple little swap ups, I think, but kind of a win-win spot for him. It's like if you lose, you just took a spot against a top 10 flyweight on short notice. UFC's probably going to throw you another Shannon Ross type fight next time out to get you back on track. And if you win, man, you're right there in the mix. And Hudson Park's a good fighter, man. He's got really good boxing. He works the body. He's a really good grappler. I just think it's just a little bit too much too soon. I think Taira's got that 5-round experience underneath his belt. He's now training in Denver like 24/7, working on the gas tank. I just feel like Tatsuro, he might not be the better striker here, so I don't want to say that. But I feel like he kind of manages the range and uses his kicks a little bit better. And I do think he's a better grappler, a little bit better at getting the back, getting positions, and again, has had 5 rounds in the full training camp. So not in love with Taira minus 330. I feel like it could be closer than that, and it could go to decision where Park wins a round or so. But I think ultimately the back half of this fight will go Taira's way. So I do got to favor him. 3 rounds might be a little bit trickier, but over the course of 5 rounds, I like Taira to find a submission or enough control time to get this one done.
Yeah, so I'm on the Taira side as well, but I will almost confidently say Hudson Park has the better striking of the two. We saw in the Roy Val fight when Tatsuro wasn't able to get that wrestling going, he kind of looked a little, out of options on the feet, and I think that he could get stuck in that against Hudson Park here as well, as long as Park's cardio can hold up. But yeah, for the times where he is able to control him on the mat, I do think that he has the better wrestling. He has a little bit better scrambles, and I think that he'll be able to at least bank enough control time to get the nod. But I do think that this fight's going to be a little bit closer than it's lined, and I'm certainly rooting for Park here, as I did pick him up in the fantasy league. So even though I don't really see him winning this spot, it is kind of a nice fight to come into where, like you said, it's a win-win. So there's no pressure on his shoulders here. He's undefeated, so he has the confidence, which is probably why he's willing to accept a fight like this. And, this is a spot where Tatsuro Taira is coming off of his first loss, so you never really know how he's going to come into this fight looking, especially early. His confidence might be a little bit shot more than usual. And if Park could steal a few rounds, that might be all that it takes to get the nod on the judges' scorecard. So, it's a Parker pass for me, but I'm certainly not laying the price tag on Tatsuro Taira here.
Yeah, man, 100% agree. Appreciate you guys tuning in with us this week. As always, keep an eye on Twitter. I've got a Neil Magny money line and a Nakamura and Carol Rosa parlay. That's it. Don't think you have anything out, but again, make sure you keep an eye on Twitter. Those will be released later this week, and we'll see you then. Y'all take it easy.
Peace.